"If you carry me up the stairs, I'll tell you a secret," said the sick little girl, her voice fragile, almost like a whisper of wind on a tired evening. That line alone was enough to pull the rough and weary mechanic, Jacob, into a story he never thought he'd be part of. And by the time you hear the secret at the end, maybe you too will understand why sometimes the smallest hands can change the biggest hearts. Jacob was not the kind of man who sought out soft moments. His world was made of grease, oil-stained shirts, and the metallic clank of wrenches echoing through his small-town garage. Life had not been kind to his father, gone too early, his mother working herself sick, and Jacob left with no time to dream, only to survive. He had built his life on toughness, on never showing weakness, on keeping his heart locked behind a wall no one could climb. He was the man who fixed cars, but never believed broken people could be mended. Then came Claire. 8 years old, pale as moonlight, with eyes that carried both wonder and exhaustion. She was the niece of Mrs. Ellison, the elderly woman who ran the bakery across from Jacob's garage. Claire had been brought to town because her mother was in the hospital far away, and her father was long gone. Her tiny figure looked almost breakable, and she often sat on the bakery steps, wrapped in a blanket, sketching with crayons while waiting for her aunt to finish work. Jacob noticed her one late evening as he was locking up. She was coughing, her small frame shaking, and he almost walked away. Almost. But something made him stop. "You shouldn't be out here this late," he grumbled. Claire looked up at him, and instead of fear, her lips curved into the softest smile. "You sound mean," she said, "but your eyes aren't." It struck him harder than a hammer to metal. No one had ever read him so plainly. That night, he helped her inside the bakery, fetched her some water, and sat awkwardly as Mrs. Ellison explained that Claire had a heart condition. The doctors were hopeful, but the stairs in the old bakery's apartment were hard on her. Still, the little girl never complained. The days turned into weeks, and Jacob found himself crossing the street more often, as sometimes to fix Mrs. Ellison's leaky sink, other times to drop off a warm meal he'd cooked late at night, pretending it was too much so he needed help finishing it. But truthfully, it was an excuse. He was drawn to Claire's laughter, the way she made his rough garage feel like less of cage. She'd sit on an overturned tire, coloring while he worked. Sometimes she asked questions about engines, sometimes she told stories that sounded bigger than life. One winter evening, when the bakery lights were dim and the snow piled high, Jacob saw Claire struggling at the bottom of the narrow staircase, clutching her sketchbook. "Too many steps today," she whispered, and then with a mischievous grin she said, "If you carry me up the stairs, I'll tell you a secret." Something in her tone made him kneel without hesitation. She wrapped her thin arms around his neck, her heartbeat fluttering against his chest like a bird too tired to fly. Halfway up, Jacob asked, "So what's this big secret?" But Claire only giggled, saying, "Not yet. Secrets are like stars that you only see them when it's dark enough." From then on, carrying Claire up the stairs became the ritual. Each night, she would promise him a secret, and each night she would delay it, saying, "Not tonight. Tomorrow will be better." Jacob didn't mind. He began to live for those moments, the way she leaned on him, the way she trusted him. For a man who had spent his whole life believing he wasn't enough for anyone, those small arms around his neck felt like redemption. but tomorrow didn't always get better. Claire's health worsened one spring. Her laughter grew weaker, her coloring slower. The hospital visits became more frequent. Jacob found himself praying for the first time in years, whispering bargains to the universe, "Take me instead. She's just a child." He even tried selling part of his garage to help cover bills, though Mrs. Ellison never asked. One night, after a particularly hard day at the hospital, Jacob carried her up again. She was quieter than usual, her breath shallow. "Jacob," she whispered, "I think it's time I tell you the secret." His throat tightened. "All right, kiddo. What is it?" Her eyes, heavy but shining, looked right into him. "You're my hero. And heroes don't always wear capes or save the world. Sometimes as a broken bar they're just people who carry you when you can't walk." She smiled faintly, her tiny fingers gripping his shirt. "I asked God to send me someone strong, and he sent me you." Jacob froze, his chest aching with the pain he couldn't name. For the first time in his life, he cried openly, holding her closer. That night, as she drifted to sleep in his arms, something inside him broke and something else healed. Claire fought bravely for months, but eventually, her little body couldn't fight anymore. On the day she left, Jacob sat in his garage alone, the silence unbearable. But then he saw her sketchbook, left behind on the workbench. Inside, page after page showed drawings of Hema not as a mechanic covered in grease, but as a giant, strong protector carrying a little girl up his staircase toward the stars. On the last page, in shaky handwriting, she had written, "Thank you for being my stairs when the world was too high." Jacob never forgot those words. From that day on, he changed. He opened his garage not just for cars, but as a safe place for kids after school. He repaired bikes for free, taught teenagers how to fix engines, and whenever someone asked him why he did it, he would smile and say, "Because once, a little girl taught me what being strong really means." And maybe, just maybe, if you've been listening closely, you'll realize that Claire's secret wasn't just for Jacob. It's for all of you. I say that sometimes the greatest thing we can do is simply carry someone when they cannot walk alone.